I had to stop and get some fuel, and I was noticing that on the sign it said Texaco with Techron underneath it, and I said, "That's odd. That's Chevron says that." And so I look it up while I'm pumping there, and Chevron owns Texaco, and I
Yeah.
was not aware of that. So
I don't
there's
guess
your
I knew
lesson
that
for the
either.
day.
Yeah. That's tends to be what happens with wealthy companies over time is they tend to consolidate, which is why even though I like capitalism, even capitalism can eventually become a problem because now you have really powerful entities gobbling up really powerful entities
Sure.
and the concentration becomes like a pyramid,
Well, and
you know?
everybody wants, and I get it. If someone sees an opportunity, at one time YouTube was a privately owned. I say privately owned; they still are, but I mean they were owned by a smaller group of people.
Mhm.
Uh, and others think that Google actually started YouTube. They didn't. They bought it.
Yep.
And at the time, they bought it for what everybody thought was a big sum, $100 million. They bought YouTube, but it's worth how much now? I mean,
Uh-huh. That's like, Google used to just be Google, but now the parent company is Alphabet, which typically when companies do that, they're basically announcing that, hey, we're no longer just this. We've acquired another 25 companies and now we're this conglomerate.
same with Meta, who was
Yeah.
Facebook at
They
one
were
time.
Facebook and
And
now they're Meta. And another example, Square turning into Block. I think they're called Block now because they got involved in crypto and
the 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 money Square,
yeah, like the Square credit
yeah,
card
the
readers.
the point of sale stuff.
Mhm.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I didn't know they had been bought out.
Yeah. And who was the guy? I'll have to look up and see who the Jack Dorsey, I think was his name. I assume he's still a large shareholder, but
With
yeah.
Twitter, yeah.
Well, I think Jack Dorsey also invested in Square.
Okay,
Elon Musk invested in several other things early too, like PayPal. I think Elon Musk was in PayPal
right.
early. But you can tell when you look up some of these, especially fintech and other spaces, you can tell that there's been some connections here that, eh, not discrediting Elon and others that have been really successful, but they've definitely had advantages in terms of they just fortunately networked with the right type of people. So
And because Cash App started it, now I'm sorry, Square started Cash App, so now Block owns Cash App as well.
yeah, yep, uh,
And people don't, it's very convenient, which I understand. I use it. I mean, but there's a little fee associated with every transaction, and when you do millions of those a day, that
it
adds up
adds up.
quite quick.
Yeah, me and Jack were just having a conversation a minute ago about credit cards, and we've spoken about this before, but it's been a minute, so I'll speak about it a little bit again. What people don't realize about credit cards is, people defend them by, "Oh, well, I get this many airline miles, I get this much money towards food, or I get money back on gas or whatever." But every time you swipe that thing, either you or the merchant pays anywhere from 2 to 4 to 5% per transaction. So, if you use your credit card for everything, the percentages that they're taking, it's basically like you're leaving a tip every transaction, and you end up usually spending much more on that than you would ever receive in points or miles or cash back. Um, what I try to get people to understand that is for some reason really hard to get people to understand is that companies have got to make money. And so if you're not, this has also been said before and it's pretty true. If you're not paying for the product, you are the product.
Hmm.
So, um, people, they show you something free, but they're either collecting your information or they're finding another way to charge you on transactions or
There's a lot to not like about certain companies, especially certain, retail companies that will do some things that kind of seem shady or kind of seem greedy, that kind of thing. One of the things I like about this company, uh, and we're going to shout out to them if you want to be a sponsor, you're more than welcome to be. Harbor Freight is what I'm talking about. That they sell a lot of things that sometimes are viewed as cheap by people. They're getting their products are getting a lot better than they initially were. Uh, to me, they're comparable with some of the top brands right now, and they're a really good price. And one of the things I like about that company is they have a credit program. You can buy tools or whatever products they sell and push the payments out to 3 years, I think, and it's
Mhm.
all 0% interest.
Yeah.
So you're paying whatever price they offer with no interest, and I thought that was pretty cool. They don't have to do that. They could make a good bit of money, but they're banking on and they're doing good. They're a billion-dollar company just by selling what I consider fairly decent products at good prices, and, if you want to take a product back, I think it's within 90 days.
Mhm.
You can get your money back for it. They're doing some things that to me are good. I really like the 3 years, no interest. That's pretty cool. If you needed a tool to get a job done and you didn't necessarily have the money for it right now, you're not paying extra by
Yeah.
pushing that out. So I think that's pretty, how should I say it? It's a cool thing for them to do for a working man, you know?
Yeah, 3 years, I'm surprised by that for sure. Because what I was about to say is usually 0 interest isn't really 0% interest. Usually it's for a certain set amount of months, and then the interest kicks in, you know?
Yeah, and I think they would probably add it if you somehow got behind and were not able to make we're not able to finish it in those 3 years, of course, but,
Yeah.
there's probably some fine print there, but, yeah, if you couldn't buy a product at Harbor Freight and pay for it in 3 years, I think you made a mistake anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you know, I not to be pessimistic, hopefully I'm wrong about this, but the way we're going, people may be to that point eventually, and I think part of what I'm trying to do with us reading Rich Dad Poor Dad and occasionally talking about precious metals is not only am I trying to educate people that I know personally, but I'm also trying to educate the audience that uh, if all you ever hold on to is the American dollar or any other government's currency, you're gonna lose over time. And I'm not saying go and get rid of all your fiat money or like, don't have any in dollars or euros or whatever, but you need to have some other things that decisions from higher up politicians, you need to have some things where that those decisions don't affect you. Like if Trump decides that he's going to tariff 20 different countries, which he's doing here recently, um, that shouldn't affect your wealth or what you're able to invest and save. And I'm not just beating up on Trump, but because um there are some strategic advantages to what he's doing, but it's definitely very bold and it can also go wrong. But if he's successful, you know, it it can pay off. But fighting the whole European Union and talking about taking Greenland and Canada and I don't know.
Hey, I'm all for it.
I mean, I'm it's difficult for me to say whether I'm for or against it. Like I see the strategic advantages and if they want to join the United States, of course, that'd be great. But to me, if they don't want to join us, and plenty of them seem like they don't want to, it feels like a weird forced
I
type of.
tell you what,
But I mean, that's how the
I'm probably for it as long as they don't get voting rights.
yeah, especially Canada.
That's right.
Sorry, Canada, y'all are a little left for us. Uh, no, but yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. Um, and speaking of Rich Dad Poor Dad, I know you said you're still not hearing, the golden thing that's gonna make you a millionaire overnight. But was there anything that caught your attention?
Um,
Um,
it's not really a revelation that the book is original to me with because I have always kind of had this opinion before the book. However, the most poignant thing to me that was said up to this point, at least on the stuff we haven't discussed yet, is that most people, even if they get a salary that's significantly higher than what I make, most people spend it, and
Yeah.
they always live a lifestyle that is spending what they make, and it's a sobering thought if you look at it from a standpoint of, you know, we've all done this before. I've seen sports athletes, celebrities who were making millions and millions of dollars. I know at one point Mike Tyson had a little over $100 million, and I think we've discussed this. But but
Mhm.
but at and then a few years he was broke. He
Yeah.
actually he actually owed millions of dollars and had to take some fights later on just to pay back some creditors.
Mhm.
Uh, and it boggles my mind. I get that, but at the same point, uh, I've been in financial straits before in my life where somebody in another country would probably look at me and say, "Look at how much he's making. How can he how can he be in financial trouble?" You know,
Mhm.
and on a smaller scale than the money that Mike Tyson had, that was me.
Yeah.
I blew through money that I should have been able to get by on. And again, one of those principles that's really kind of coming out in the book to me, say you make $50,000 a year. If you're able to live on 30 and you actually live on 30, look what you've got at the end of the year.
Yeah.
And I mean, now I get that it's easy for me to say that. I get that. However, uh, if anybody gets anything out of this, it is, I guess, delayed gratification.
Mhm.
If you're able to put money away and, again, like the book tries to teach you, let it work for you instead of working for it. I think that's the key to this book, really.
Yeah, cutting expenses and saving are definitely really important. But the other thing that really caught my attention once all this stuff first started really sinking in with me is he keeps talking about assets and
Hmm.
liabilities, and he keeps talking about um the difference between and not, you know, people are gonna think I'm knocking educators or teachers. I'm not, but he ends up talking a lot either in this book or one of his other books about how educators basically teach you a lot of the wrong things, and that quickly offends a lot of people. And
Teach things backwards from what he thinks they need to be. And we've talked about this before, much the same way the Bible teaches principles that the world thinks are backwards.
yeah.
So one of the things I'm still trying to wrap my head around, and I know that he'll probably get into. In fact, he was getting into it a little bit deeper when I cut it off. But I'm still not able to wrap my head around yet that he thinks that owning a house is a bad investment. Um,
Yeah, we can that's a good thing to talk about too. It's
I guess I hadn't got to the point yet where he expects me to live if I don't
yeah.
if I don't have
Well,
one.
now what you just said there is good. That's a key part of it too. He's he's not it sounds like he's saying this. He's not saying that a home is something that you shouldn't own or have. He's just saying that you should not view that as your principal investment because although it's good to have
Because I assume most people do.
yeah,
That's their largest investment, so that's
yeah,
gonna be their largest what they consider asset. So
yeah. And I like you said, everybody's got to have somewhere to live. Um, and most people that are clever or smart realize that when they rent something, those rents tend to go up over time. So it's definitely good to have one. But the
but
point,
like he said, so does property tax.
yeah, yeah, well, and that's the point of having one is not thinking that you need like $1 million home. You know, being able to settle with $100,000, $150,000 home.
Sure.
And with today's interest rates, that's significantly more expensive than it was just a few years ago. So,
Well, I think that in many ways, uh, unless you're one of those that has money put away, which is a good thing, to put down on a property right now, really, to me, only the wealthy right now at this moment are able to purchase property and that kind of thing easily because they have money on hand. The average person, like we were talking about a minute ago, is having to pay extra interest, and that's hard right now because those monthly payments go up, and that's for, long term is 30 years, sometimes longer than that now,
yeah.
that you're tied into that high interest rate.
Yeah, and another thing that you really need to do if you wanna help yourself is subscribe to the channel, and I figured I better say that before I forget, we get too deep into it. No, but if you enjoy the content, please subscribe. We wanna get to 2,000 and then 4,000, which I know is way off from where we currently are, so hit the subscribe button, like, uh, throw in a comment. One of us will do our best to, respond to you. I almost always respond. I might not respond same day or next day, but I'll eventually respond. Um, but yeah, like we were talking about with the house, um, or well, you made the point of needing, a certain amount for down payment. Well, let's say that you had a year or two where you decided, hey, I'm really going to try hard to save up some money for a down payment. And after a year or two, you end up with $20,000, $30,000 and you're able to put down a down payment. Well, the other problem with that is if you do that, now you're back to zero. so,
That's right.
so, I mean, although, yeah, it's helping you because now you have a place to live that's relatively stable in terms of what you owe every month, you still are back to broke. so,
One of the things that some people may not realize, at least in the United States, if you're listening outside the United States, if you're not able to put down at least 20% of whatever amount you're borrowing, we have to pay here what's called PMI,
hmm
which is insurance on your loan,
yeah, I think it literally stands for private mortgage insurance, PMI.
and you're actually paying the insurance for the company,
hmm
uh, so they can loan you money in case you default on that loan.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I forget what all circumstances. Yeah, if you don't have a down payment, I think they pretty much force you to get
that's right,
PMI,
which makes your monthly payment go up even more.
and it may also be that under a certain credit score, you have to have it too. Um, so although credit score, unlike what banks will tell you, is not the end all be all in terms of building wealth. Like it's good to have a good credit score, but the bank wants you to think that credit score is everything because the more money you borrow, the more banks are going to make and other lenders are going to make. Now, it's still good to have a good credit score, but your financial foundation doesn't need to be built on credit score. Your financial foundation needs to be built on you got to save some of the money that you're making because it's not about what you make, it's about what you keep. And that's the biggest mistake that people, you can have, let's say you have a lawyer that makes 300,000 a year, but you have a teacher that makes $60,000 a year. That lawyer can still be more broke than the teacher
That's right.
if they do nothing but stupid stuff
That's
with their
right.
money. So,
Just like the celebrities making millions,
mhm,
if he spends it all, he has none, just like the guy down the road who's homeless.
yeah. And then you can take it a step further and say it's not what you make, it's what you keep and what you keep generation after generation. So,
Right.
that's when it really starts getting complex because you're like, well, how do I control you know, if what I pass down is handled well? Well, that means that you got to teach your kids or whoever your family
And one of the
how to
things
do
that's
what
got
it
me
is.
thinking about from a long-term standpoint, I know it's hard. I don't have ideas just like other people don't, but uh generating ways to have passive uh income that you can generate without having to be involved in it to make money. Like when you go work a job and you work 8 hours, you're going to make money. Then when you go home, you're not making any money.
Yeah,
Passive income, things that you can set in motion that actually work for you when you're not having to put attention to it. And again, I would love to come up with ways to do those things too, but
Yeah, make
with
money while
those
you're sleeping.
that's right, that's right.
Yeah. Now that's what everybody wants to do, and you can do that for the most part, or at least for 85%, but one important thing to understand before you can do that is that nothing is truly passive. So you have to get out of the mindset, I'm not ever going to have to spend any time or do anything with this. You just want to get in the mindset of what can I invest in or get started that's going to make me a lot of money and take a lot less of my time. It's always going to take some of your time, but you want to eliminate as much of that your time as,
And people don't think about things really realistically. Like I came up at a time where there was no internet, right? So if I wanted to sell something, I actually had to personally, physically get in front of someone, or I had to go down to the radio station and buy some advertisement, or I had to buy a billboard to physically put on a road somewhere, or I had to go door to door knocking on those doors to sell something, right?
Mhm,
Nowadays, you can have a website and anybody in the world can see that and you can generate income. That's really a form of passive income there.
mhm,
If you have a small amount to put on a website, you can generate passive income if you can get it in front of people. Uh, you know, things today are much easier. It's much easier to generate passive income today than it was in the past.
mhm. And I would, in some ways that's true, and in some ways it isn't. And I'll say why that's my opinion. Now there are still some really good traditional ways to generate passive income that are still good to use, but are now much more expensive compared to what they were decades and decades ago. Two examples of those that are really good passive income that a lot of people like me would indulge in if we could. And I may eventually get involved in some of these, but it's one of those things where you have to have a significant amount of funds before you can get involved with it. There's good old laundromats and car washing places.
Or
Um,
storage buildings.
yeah, some laundromats generate 500,000, maybe even 1,000,000 a year. I mean, you'd be surprised, and I'm talking about like coin laundry. You'd be surprised one of those being in the right place, how much money you can make with one of those.
Which again is surprising that is that amount of people, and there are. It's absolute truth. There's that many people who don't own a washer and a dryer,
Yeah. Yeah.
that they have. And now I feel for them, I do. But it is incredible. I've known several instances of some people who got very wealthy just because they owned a laundromat.
Hmm. Yeah. I mean, I think for the most part, the reason why people don't have them isn't so much. I mean, there are some people that probably genuinely feel like they can't afford them, but I think for the most part, the people that don't have them because they live in a really small space and they just don't want to take up
That
extra
that
space with them.
may be true. Yeah.
But I don't know. But nowadays, appliances, I'm sure I haven't looked at the prices, but I'm sure they're much more expensive than they were. I know, for instance, if your HVAC system goes out and you need a new HVAC system,
Golly, dude.
you better be selling drugs. I'm just
See,
kidding, don't do that.
I
But
I knew when I heard.
there,
Now this is I say a recent development, fairly recent, just in the last several years. You're able to finance, and they have their own finance companies now too. Some of the larger HVAC companies to finance your AC work.
yeah, yeah, it's
So not only is it an exorbitant price, they're making interest off of
mhm.
your AC repairs or installations as well.
And smart companies, and I just because I call them smart doesn't mean I'm agreeing with everything that they do, but from it's smart from a business standpoint because as you become a bigger company and now you're worth more money and you have more money on hand, well, just like any other investor, now I've got to decide, hey, what do I do with this surplus of cash that I've got in hand? I can give it to my shareholders in the form of uh, a dividend. I can buy back the shares, which might prop up the stock price, or um, I can, you know, find new ways to invest that cash. One of which is a loan, doing loans. So a lot of companies end up lending money in some form or fashion simply because they've gotten bigger and they have a surplus that they, just like any other investor, they need to figure out what to do with it. Um, but yeah, it it the more of these opportunities that you start to see, the good news is once it really hits home in your mind, you start seeing more of these opportunities that otherwise you wouldn't have seen. Like for instance, if we went riding down Highway 80 right now and we looked around, most people would see, oh well, here's a restaurant, here's another restaurant, here's a store. But what I see is, you know, this is a business that is generating somebody 300,000 a year. This is a business that's generating somebody $1 million a year. This business is making somebody 20,000 a day, you know. And that the kind of business that's making 20,000 a day is obviously going to be much more complex than a laundromat. I mean, something like that we're usually talking about software, some
Well, and
type of technology, but
you also don't not to get off your train of thought there, but one of the things that other people don't consider either is a lot of people have the completely wrong mindset that when you're saying that, that's what they're netting. We don't know at all what the $20,000 company a day, what their overhead is. They may be spending 10 every day to make that 20.
yep,
Uh,
true.
that's one of the things too that people don't consider. All they see is the profit that comes from this company. I see people do that all the time who make the mistake. Well, this guy owns a business. He's obviously rich.
Yeah.
Why do you say that? Because he owns the business. But you have absolutely no idea. Uh, that guy who owns the business can be in just the same boat as a person down the road who working a paycheck to paycheck, depending on overhead and what he spends in his own personal life.
Yeah, in my opinion, really what's going to help people better understand what you're talking about is two other things besides assets and liabilities that you need to burn into your brain are revenue and net income, and a term called EBITDA, which is earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization. But worry about that one later. Revenue and net income. Revenue is, uh, yeah, the total amount that you're bringing in. So, like Chris was saying, that doesn't include your overhead and what kind of money's going out of the business. Now, then net income is what you're bringing in minus expenses. So, to me, I'm always much more interested, like you said, in net income because you could be generating $500,000 a year in revenue, but you might only be earning $70,000. And businesses like that, I try to stay away from because
Well, and the thing is, you may be making, and I mean making it, generating a huge amount. But if the net income, like you talked about, is small, you have to weigh that against the headache of managing something that is bringing in maybe a huge amount of money, but you're only taking home a portion of it. At the end of the day, sometimes it's just not worth it in the long run of the amount of effort that you're having to put into a business that may be making or maybe bringing in a huge amount of money if you're having to put out a huge amount to
yeah.
run it.
Yep, and a really good thing to understand about businesses, and and this is true for individuals too, and people, even though people don't like to talk about this, there's really, in the mortal world that we're living in, there's no such thing really as equality. People are not equal. Businesses, especially, are not equal. Some businesses obviously earn way more than other businesses, and I'm not saying you shouldn't strive for equality, but it's just not realistic because in the world that we live in, people are either greedy or envious, and emotions tend to drive a lot of people's decisions. And that's just as true when it comes to business as it is other things.
Yes,
Um,
Elon, you may come up with a Tesla phone, but it's not going to be an iPhone.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Speaking of which, I haven't even heard about that in a long time. I wonder where they're
Been
at
a
with
bit.
that.
Yeah.
I'll have to look and see if that's still going to happen. And that's what really big businesses tend to do. Once you get,
But I don't believe that iPhone will ever make a rocket. And
Yeah.
Elon has the kind of cornered the market on that.
Yeah.
So
Yep. That's once businesses get really good at the one thing that's making them a lot of money, and they're able to confidently say that that revenue stream is going to continue. That's what allows them to ultimately dip into other niches, and that's why you have, to me, the even even though Nvidia and Microsoft and some others might be worth more right now than Amazon, to me, Amazon is still the best example of a modern business that took all this stuff to the extreme because Amazon started off as just like an online bookstore. Now you've got Amazon Prime Video. You've got one of these big companies has buy now, pay later, which goes back into giving people loans that they don't
mhm.
always realize are loans. And who knows what the interest rates are. Speaking of which, one good thing or sort of good thing that I saw about interest rates is it sounds like, and this may only be for a year. I wish it would happen for longer than a year, but I think Trump was trying to pass something where um, credit card companies couldn't charge you more than 10%, which would still be a big deal for a lot of people because up until now, there are times when people end up paying 28, 20. I've never seen another company legally be able to charge as much interest as credit card companies can charge people. I don't know what loophole that I guess they just have really good attorneys because no other business that I know of can get away with doing that because of some usury law. Um, and if you don't know what usury is, traditionally that term, correct me if I'm wrong, means that basically charging more interest than what would be considered fair or just. Um, Usury has, I'm pretty sure, been considered a sin, if I'm not mistaken,
Right.
or certainly.
You know, there's something else that I wanted to. I haven't seen them. Maybe just because I haven't noticed them in a while, and they may have outlawed them. I don't know. But these, some of the worst encroachers on what you were talking about there, were the payday advance people.
Mhm.
Uh, those are people that are just giving you an advance on your on your paycheck.
Yep.
And some of those places did what are those pay for your car title. That
Yeah.
if you give them your car title, they give you a loan on that, and if you can't pay it back, they keep your car. How about that?
Yeah.
Uh, uh,
Yeah.
in the
That's
long run, some of those interests are enormous. One of the thing I wanted to mention to you too was, and again, I'm not necessarily knocking the business model. It's getting people, it's getting people paid. You're the one that chooses to do business with them. Let me say that. But there's a certain, I can't remember the name of is it Corner Market? The Corner Market that does it, or is it I can't remember the name of the chain. Anyway, one of those that on their billboard, on their actual store, they advertise what you find on their shelves is a certain price. And when you get to the register, they add 10%
huh.
to whatever your total is. So every time you go to the aisle to pick up these items, sure, it says a certain price on it, but when you get to the end, they add 10%.
How are they able to just out of the blue add 10%?
Because they advertise, that's what we do.
Now I'm confused.
You pay the price plus 10%. And in fact, I'll look it up right now.
So anytime somebody does a transaction with them, they're automatically paying an extra 10%.
To their total bill at the end. Yes.
And then taxes on top of that.
And taxes on top of that.
Why would anybody hear that and go, "Hey, that sounds like a great idea"?
I think it's one of those immediate gratification things. People look at why do you, I've asked people before, why do you shop at such and such down here? Oh, the prices are below everybody else's. I said, but when you get to the counter, they add 10%.
Mhm.
How do you even know what the cost of the product is compared to Walmart or some of the other places? Well, it's cheaper. I know what I pay. It's cheaper. Really? Do you really know that it is?
Speaking of which, and profit margins is another thing that you really have to have a good understanding of to have any type of successful business, including passive income sources. And one really good example of a giant company that's able to operate on a really small profit margin is good old Walmart. Uh, you would be surprised. Now, Walmart, I want to say, is worth, I don't know, half a trillion, maybe even more than that now.
A bunch.
Yeah, they might be worth close around a trillion now. But Walmart's profit margins, when I've looked at the stock in the past, is typically like 5%, which most businesses operating on a 5% profit margin would be almost impossible to do or really difficult to do. But since Walmart has such a large business and they're generating billions of dollars a quarter, you know, it's a little bit easier, I guess, for them to operate on that small margin and
Corner market.
corner market.
Do you know a
Okay.
corner market grocery store?
I've heard of it.
All
I've
of
never
corner
been there.
markets run their stores that way.
To where they add 10%.
Yes.
Wow.
The price, you get a lower price on every product on the shelf. And immediately when you ring up, you get a 10% added.
Huh. Yeah, that's wild. I've never heard of a business doing that before. Um, well, I guess if you just buy one item, maybe it's not such a big deal, but you get a cart full of stuff and
Oh, yeah.
it gets to be
It's
a big
interesting,
deal.
man. It's a different way. Now again, whoever came up with that idea, it was a good marketing move. Uh, I just don't see that people don't see that for what it is.
Mhm. Well, too, yeah, I don't know, that's something that amazes me every day too, and it goes sort of along with part of what Rich Dad Poor Dad's telling us. And this is part of the reason why people don't learn these things either, because nobody wants to criticize themselves or think that they're wrong about anything. But another thing that that book teaches you is that the vast majority of society is brainwashed into a certain way of thinking. And only, it may be a little bit more than this now, but traditionally, only 10% of the population is able to basically escape the brainwashing and figure out how to build wealth.
That's right.
Because society only teaches you to go to school, get good grades, get employed by somebody. But if you just start thinking outside of the box just a little bit, like just for example, think about who employs you. What is what is that person's business that they employed you for? When you start thinking that way, then you start making steps from employee to employer. Um, and if we ever got in a situation where everybody wanted to be an employer and nobody wanted to be an employee, we'd be in trouble too. I mean, you need some people to be employees, but you know, it wouldn't hurt for us to have that number instead of being 10%, 20%, 30%, 40%. We definitely need a lot more competition and a lot more business owners. Um, and that's part of my goal with this podcast is to unwash people's brain and help them potentially be able to see some of these other things. Um, because like many other people, I'm the product of the public school system, and no public school in the world I don't think is going to teach you anything about money. They're going to teach you algebra and science and history and you know anything but how to make money is what they're going to teach you. And then they're going to encourage you to go to a university and learn a skill, and they're going to try to encourage you to get whatever the best job is with the highest salary. And it's not that that's terrible advice, but it goes back to what we were talking about earlier, which is it's not what you make, it's what you keep.
That's right.
So, let's say you're in a country that has a 50% tax rate. Well, if you landed a good job and your salary is 200,000, we'll cut off $100,000.
That's right. Look at what I just sent you there. Uh, this is it, they actually own another chain of stores as well, and it actually tell you a little bit about the story right there.
Items are stocked and labeled with the exact price the store paid. So they're being transparent, or well, they say they're being transparent and showing you what their wholesale price is. Then a 10% surcharge is added to the total at checkout. Yeah, see, to me, the main problem, it probably is a really good idea for the business, but just because they claim to be labeling items the price at which they paid, there's nobody checking to vouch for them that that's true. They could just straight up be lying to you, you know?
It's one of those things that it's almost like that grocery store model wants to run their pricing structure the same way car lots do.
Mhm.
Okay, there's like
No haggle.
this is yeah. This is the price for the car.
Yeah.
And then when you get back to the finance guy, he was like, "Well, we gotta add this for this. This you had this package, so we gotta add this." And then you get to the end and you're like, "Well, I'm financing 5 grand more than the price is here."
No money, no
And
job, no credit, no problem.
That's right. That's right.
Do you have a heartbeat? We'll finance.
Push it in, pull it in, or drag it in. We'll take your trades.
Yeah. No, all you're right. All of these guys that operate that way operate on baking in a certain profit margin. And I mean, if you really are doing it fairly, to me, 10% is still pretty reasonable because a lot of businesses, good businesses, including uh some of these really big corporations, some of these guys, even though they bake it into the price of the good, or they don't do it that way where they say we're adding on an extra 10%. There are a lot of companies that, and I mean, Apple's an example. Apple's profit margins are probably more in the neighborhood from 20 to 50%. So Apple's profit margins are humongous. Um,
It's just like every time you've ever made a purchase, whether it be online or uh, through mail order, people don't know about that anymore. But anytime you pay at the bottom there, what's called a shipping and handling fee. Okay, shipping I get. Okay, but handling is because I had to go over to this warehouse and pick this product up, put it in a box, and get it ready for you. I'm going to get paid for that
mhm.
on top of the purchase price of said product. You do that a million times, and you've made millions of dollars just off a little fee that you added. Your cell phone company does it. Look at
Mhm.
all the little fees that are added to your cell phone bill every month. Uh, there's things that you're like, what does this even mean? What's
Yeah.
what's this dollar fee here that says usage fee? I thought that was what I was doing when I bought your product. When I what do you mean a usage fee? What does that even mean? Now every company does it, and I don't like the problem is that most people don't read the fine print. Every time you sign up for something and it says, "Here's the terms and conditions," they scroll to the bottom, hit okay, and they don't know what they've signed. They don't know what they've signed.
Yeah. Well, and I'm glad you bring that up too, because to me, companies are able to get away with something in regards to that they shouldn't be able to, which is they should not be able to make a 100-page long terms and agreement that you
Agreed.
even an attorney's not going to read that whole thing. Um, there should be legislation in place that puts a limit on, you know, say 2 pages, 3 pages, whatever. And most people won't even read 2 or 3 pages, but there definitely needs to be a limit there. Which is part of the reason why I think sometimes if people get into a court battle over these things, companies can't always use that to back themselves up because it's common knowledge that the average consumer, including me, by the way, I'm not about to read 100 pages of terms and agreement.
That's
Uh,
right.
but I think, and I mean, it may not always be the case, but I think most judges understand that now that it's pretty unfair to assume that anybody's going to read 100 pages of an agreement. Um,
It's just like I guess this is kind of an extreme case. This is not the case in every situation. However, those little disclaimers, the little pieces of paper that you sign when you go into an amusement park or a water park that says, "I understand that if I get injured and such and all that, that the ownership here is not responsible," that kind of thing. They are. I don't care what kind of piece of paper you sign, you can't sign away your rights
Mhm.
like that. If they are liable for something that happened there, you can still sue them. I don't care what kind of paper you signed. You don't sign away your rights.
Yeah. No,
So
that's fortunately, that's true as
they fool people sometimes
Yeah.
into that to where they won't sue them
Mhm.
when they rightfully could.
Well, that's really what the
But
goal is. It's the goal of most companies that do really long
it's
forms is
deception.
deception and trying to scare you away from taking any action. But
The best thing a group of people can do to protect what they have is to fool you into thinking that you don't have any rights.
Mhm.
That's their
Hmm.
greatest tool.
Yep. Yep, persuasion and sales uh make up a huge chunk of
That's the
business.
reason sometimes you hear, like, I've seen it on certain dramas that I've watched where I think, have you ever heard of Landman?
Uh-huh. Yep.
Uh, where people are injured or family members killed, and they'll go in and offer what to these people, and even to me sometimes seems like an exorbitant amount of money. However, it's not a fraction of what they could make if they waited and went to court.
Mhm.
But if you go dump a stack of cash in front of most people, they'll sign it away right there because it's crazy what people will do when offered that amount of money when all they have to do is wait a little bit, but they're not willing to do that.
And another example sort of going along with what you're talking about a little bit. There's another channel that I really like on YouTube. He's pretty trying to think of a way to describe him. He can be a little high,
Salty?
yeah, a little salty and a little high strung and a little have some strong verbiage, but he's fun to me to watch. He has this channel and he owns a jewelry store, multi-million-dollar investor and jewelry store owner. And yeah, it's called Trax NYC. Speaking of which, they made a movie. Adam Sandler was in it. What was that movie where he's like a jeweler?
I know what you're talking about.
Uncut gems.
That's it.
I want to say that was inspired by Trax NYC. So he's got this like super hilarious person. He's very like
Flamboyant. and-
flamboyant and charismatic. But anyway, what I was getting at is he makes these shorts, like these short form videos, like what we do, except he usually makes them really I don't know, flamboyant, I guess to use the same word. But sometimes what he'll do is he'll get a box and he'll put actual silver bars and gold bars in there, and he'll walk around the streets of New York with like hundreds of thousands of dollars of gold and silver in this box. And in one hand he'll have the box, and in another hand he'll have cash, and he'll walk around as people when they're walking in New York are walking with a purpose. Like they're just trying to get from point A to point B, and they don't really pay a lot of attention about what's going on around them. And he'll walk up to people and be like, "Ma'am, silver." I don't think he directly says silver. He'll say, "Ma'am, would you like a Trax pack?" He'll call them Trax pack, but he'll show them a silver bar or gold bar, and they'll choose the money instead. And so basically, a lot of they might be choosing $20, $100 when there's $4,700 sitting right there that they
When all they have to do is take it to the store down the road, even if he wouldn't buy it back.
especially in New York City, they actually have a precious metals exchange there, which if you know what that is, precious
That's just the height of laziness, dude. I mean, that's for real.
Yeah, they could almost go down the street and resell that thing. Certainly you're not going to get spot, but I mean, they get at least 4,600 bucks for it. And all they have to do is just pay attention. And another thing that he'll do when people choose the money And he'll be like, you win and you lose. And what he means by that is
Yeah.
by choosing the money, you're choosing a fiat piece of paper that goes down in value over time. Whereas if you understand money and precious metals, you understand that silver and gold go up over time, and the dollar, the euro, the rupee, whatever kind of government money, there's no nice way to say this. Governments are imbeciles. They make no good decisions at all. So governments, their currencies do nothing but depreciate in value over time because they print more money. They spend every dime that they have. They act just like the average consumer, pretty much. Well, actually worse, because the average consumer can't just infinitely go into debt. um, and when you have nuclear weapons, it's hard to repo. You know, somebody can't just come and collect because, you know, we could launch missiles at them. But yeah, it's, I'd encourage you to, he's getting some free advertisement here. I'd encourage you to check out that channel too. It's a trip when he goes up and offers people gold versus paper money. And I would bet 80 to 90% of the time they just take the paper money. And I'm always like scratching my head.
You know, most people, just like you talked about, some people, when they see that they're being presented with an option, just like you just said, when they see they're being presented with an option and they see that hand with cash in it, most of them even, they don't even listen to the question. They tune you out right then. They just know, well, I'm obviously taking the cash. And they don't, most of them, I guarantee you don't even listen to the proposition. All they see is the cash.
Yeah.
I heard the same thing about, you remember the show, Gas Monkey Garage.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Guy
I
used to go
remember
around,
that.
he would buy cars from people, fix them up, sell them, and make a profit. And he vows, vows that he used to do this all the time, and he did because he was able to do it like you talked about, having cash on hand.
Mhm.
Somebody would be offering a car at a certain price, and he said, I did it every time. I would go to people who said, you know, this is what I'm offering it for. I won't take any less than this. And he said it never failed. I would go to their house and open up my duffel bag and dump actual physical cash on their table and say, "This is what I'm willing to pay for it." He said sometimes it'd be $5,000 or $10,000 less, and they would agree to it.
Yeah.
He said because they saw the cash on their table, they couldn't refuse it.
Emotions.
I mean, honestly, I'll be honest with you, that's a sad state for people to be in, but it works. And he
Yeah.
knew that it did, and he was able to turn a lot of times a $5,000 or $10,000 profit without even doing anything to the car yet. He had already made the money because they took less than it was worth.
Yeah.
All because he brought physical cash and put it on their table.
Another one of the things that wealthy people and business owners understand that the average consumer doesn't, and it's a killer if you don't understand this, is what you're talking about, which is that they understand money and emotion for most people is intertwined. And the only way to become wealthy or to build your wealth is to separate your emotion from the money, and to be able to look at all the external factors. Because, like you said, you know, average person, they see a couple band. I think people
He,
call
he
it a
talked
band,
about he talked about
$1,000.
laying it out and watching their eyes get big.
Yep.
You know when he laid it out there.
Yep. Um, that's one of the biggest things that keeps a lot of people poor is they're unable to detach emotions from money. And
He said he would watch them have arguments with themselves. He would say they would sit there looking at it, and he would say, "No, I said I wasn't going to take I wasn't going to take less. You know, it'll be."
Yeah.
He would watch them have arguments with themselves, and they would talk themselves out of it just because they were looking at the cash.
Yeah.
You
It's
know,
that immediate gratification.
that's right.
Yep.
They would look. They would be sitting there looking at it, and you could see them spending that money right now before they even had it in their hand, and they were just so willing to take a cut. It boggles. He said, I could walk in with a check and it didn't have the same effect. But when I opened up that duffel bag and dumped that money out, he said most of the time I could tell within a few seconds whether it was over or not. And he said most of the time I had them.
Mhm.
And
Yeah, and, we haven't gotten to this part of Rich Dad Poor Dad yet, I don't think. I mean, I have because 'cause I've read it, but he gets to a point that, where he's teaching his kid and teaching, what's the guy's name? The author of the thing.
Robert,
What Yeah, Robert Kiyosaki. He's teaching Robert Kiyosaki and his own son, uh, how to think like an investor, and eventually he gets to the point to where he's like, "Alright," and that mind you, this is back in, like, either the 50s, 60s, 70s, so money goes a lot further then than it does now. He got to and both of them are, like, I don't know, 12 years old or something like that, like, they're really young, and at some point, he offers them something like 5 or $6 an hour, which in modern terms would be let's just say ridiculous for a kid that has no bills to be able to earn that much. Um, you know, I wanna say back in those days, if I'm guessing, like a new bicycle, for instance, would maybe be 15 bucks, 20 bucks. So like that was, I don't know, 5 to $10 an hour back then was like serious money. Um, and anyway, he's like, uh, it's one of his stores or shops that he's got him working in, and he's like, "Okay, if you want me to, I'll pay you this set amount, um, but I'm not gonna tutor you anymore on investing or becoming a business owner." And so he made them have to confront their picking the money versus picking the opportunity. And he's trying to show them that emotion. He's trying to get them to detach their emotions from a dollar amount.
mm,
And it talks about how like, their eyes were like glazing over and their mouth was watering, thinking about
right.
flashing the cash in front of their friends. And but ultimately they make the decision to continue letting him teach them. Um, but
And he
yeah.
himself even says he understands the emotion involved there that, uh, and it's just what we talked about here about people having cash set in front of them. When you're looking, when some people get to the point to where they sell something, and most of them are selling something they really want to keep, they
Mhm,
just need the money. And when you get them get people in a position to where they're just looking for a lifeline, sometimes people are going to take the smaller amount just because it's there right now.
mhm.
You know,
A lot of people do that. Um, yeah, it's a mistake that a lot of people make, uh, especially in terms of vehicles and homes.
hey
A
man,
a lot of people nowadays, where I really see people getting financially wrecked the most nowadays is giving their car back to a dealership. Uh, Trade in your vehicle. Uh, I have never, and mind you, like I said, I sold cars for a brief little time. I have never seen or heard of a dealership paying more than, I don't know, 2, $3,000 for a trade-in. They almost always bank on vehicle trade-ins as being their if all else fails, profit margin. So, like, if you talk them down on the price of a car, they plan on messing you over on the trade-in. I mean, I'm not, you know, we gotta have some car dealerships or whatever, but just to let you know, almost all of them intentionally lowball people on trade-ins. So,
Kevin, they are. It's a different scale, and it's a different if it's a different type of business. But when you're talking about trading in and reselling, they are nothing more than a pawn store.
mhm,
That they're doing exactly the same thing. I'll give you this much for your product. Well, it's worth more than well, I gotta make some money.
yeah,
So, I mean, that's the same principle they're working on.
mhm. And I mean, don't get me wrong, I can respect that principle of they do have to be able to make some money. I definitely understand that. But it's up to you as the consumer to be educated enough to know
Amen.
when they're really messing you over versus,
Amen.
when they're just getting enough of a profit margin to for it to be a decent deal for them.
Kevin, I see it all the time. You know, we talk about, and I know you've seen some of these shows too, where somebody will go in with something and they just happen to be in front of the right person who wouldn't take advantage of them. I think of the guy, whatever that story was, it Pawn Stars out in Las
Uh-huh.
Vegas. And there's
Yeah, I
another
like
one.
that show.
There's another guy that I watch in Florida sometimes, some of his videos. Old lady will go in with some jewelry and say, I'm trying to buy, my daughter's in college. I'm trying to buy her a computer. I'm trying to get $500 or $600 for this jewelry. And the guy says, I can't do that. I'm sorry. She said, well, would you give me $350 for it?
Mm.
And he says, no, you misunderstand. This jewelry is worth 10 grand and I'll write you a check for it right now. And the thing is, the lady went in there fully wanting to be able to get 500 so she could get her daughter a computer when it was worth 10 grand. Now the guy could have said, yeah, I'll write you a check for 500.
And
However, he did the lady a favor by
yeah,
saying, I'm sure some other places will do this, but they're taking advantage of you. He didn't have to do that.
yeah.
But you understand, 9 times out of 10, other people are being taken advantage of because they're not as scrupulous as this other guy.
Oh, yeah, no,
So
the vast majority of business owners, whether you think it's right or wrong, would not do that.
that's right.
And I mean, maybe he does that on a rate, you know, I don't know the guy personally, I forget what his name is, Rick or whoever
Yeah.
runs the Pawn Star shop, but now granted too, when you're on camera, of course you're gonna make yourself
Right.
look as good as possible on camera, but I guarantee you that 90 to 95% of business owners or investors off camera would just hand her the 5. I mean, but it is, you know, it would be nice to see more business owners and investors be more fair like that. But part of and I I feel like I'm really beating a dead horse saying this, but part of the reason people aren't as generous is because of our and even though ours are better than some other countries, our tax rates, as long as we have high taxes, people are going to be less inclined to be generous with others.
And while we're on that subject, again, I'm not trying to disparage any business. We have to have all these businesses to run. I get that. If you can at all help it, don't ever go sell anything to a pawn shop.
Yeah.
You're automatically going to get less than what the product is worth because they have to resell it. The pawn store owners aren't buying your product because they want to keep it. They're buying it because they want to sell it.
Yeah.
And they're never going to give you what a product is worth because they're going to resell it. If you are willing, like we talked about, delayed gratification, if you're willing to wait a little bit, it may take you longer, but if you sell a product online or you actually, sell it yourself, you're actually going to get somebody that wants the product that you have, and they'll pay for what you're asking for it. You may have to wait a little bit longer, but you'll get what the product is worth.
Yeah. People would be a lot better off if they I'm sure both of you have seen a show called Shark Tank where they, you know, pitch people about buying deals and businesses. If everybody thought about all business owners and investors as sharks, your average consumer would be much better off because people think of them as just normal people and they're going to give me a fair shake. They're going to give me a good deal. You need to acknowledge the fact that when you and I'm not saying all business owners are bad, but I am saying that they are financially motivated. So you need to understand when you go to a business owner or an investor, it is not their prerogative to be all about you. They're there for one thing, to make money. So
And what is amazing is it's and people have to understand that they got to this level. The guys that are on Shark Tank that are billionaires got there because they were able to make decisions like this.
Mhm.
If you watch them walk away from deals where the difference was like 100 grand, okay? No, I'm not. This is as far as I'm willing to go. Well, I'm gonna have to walk away. Okay. And you think, golly, dude, you're a billionaire
Yeah.
and you're walking away from investing in this group over 100 grand. Well, they're billionaires because they were able to walk away from deals like that
Mhm.
that they knew in their heart was just a little too rich. And the reason that they've made it that far is they stick to their guns. They're not one they don't make emotional decisions.
Mm-hmm. And another thing too, generally by the time you become either a millionaire, multimillionaire, billionaire, you've been through a couple of bad deals and you understand how much a bad deal can hurt you. And when you understand how much a bad deal can hurt you, you're going to be much more, hey, I'm not willing to do anything over this.
Especially
Take
those
it or leave it.
especially those that you knew you were making a mistake and did it anyway. You know?
Mhm. Yep. Fortunately, I haven't been burned a ton of times, but I have been burned pretty bad one time. And even just that being burned pretty bad one time has made me
A lot more wary.
like a megalodon pretty much.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm as shark as it can get pretty much when it comes to business and investing. Like if I don't like anything about the proposal, um, and not only that, but most of them think this way too. I have to see that it's potentially a good deal 20 years down the road, 30 years down the road. So if anybody were to come pitch something to me, you know, you better have a binder and be able to explain to me where and account for every penny where it's going. Um, you know, the another thing that
I'm
you
just trying to give you a chance to get it on the ground floor, Kevin. Just trying to give you a chance right now.
Yeah. trying to bring people to the ground floor.
Did you hear that? Yeah, I could tell he was convinced.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
From a guy that's still on the ground floor.
That's right. That's right.
But he's gonna lift you off. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I'm telling you, it's gonna take off tomorrow.
Yeah. And now, I mean, to be fair though, it's also a good idea if you are an investor or business owner. Sometimes somebody really does have an idea that can take off, and so a skill that even a lot of wealthy people don't have that all of them wish that they had is to be able to always identify something that nobody else sees, because that's really when you're going to make the most or build the most wealth, is when you're able to spot something that's going to be successful that other people can't see.
I've also heard testimonials from people who did walk away from a deal on Shark Tank because they said, I was standing in front of these people. 2 or 3 of them made me an offer, and I realized that I did have a good deal. So I said, no, I'll just keep it.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was pretty neat too. It's got to be hard for them to turn down that kind of money when they're standing there saying, I'll give you this if you do this. None of them, nearly none of them, get exactly what they're asking for when they go in there. Guy's always going to negotiate a better deal for himself. That's what the sharks do. Regardless of whether they think it's a good deal or not, they're going to get a little bit more.
Yeah. Yeah. It's yeah. Some business owners, investors are going to give you a better deal than others. It goes back to what I was saying earlier. Equality is mainly a dream. I'm not saying you shouldn't strive for equality or hope for equality, but for the most part, it's non-existent.
For instance, sometimes they'll say, I'm asking for, let's say, I'm asking for $500,000 and you get 10% of my company. And I've seen them say, okay, I see your product. I like it. I'm going to give you the $500,000, but I want 25% of the company.
Yeah.
And when you're talking about people that have done the homework and they know I can't do that, it's still hard to walk away from that. You just got a yes, I'm going to give you $500,000, and it's hard for people to walk away from that.
Yeah. Yep. It always goes back to, like I said earlier, being able to detach emotion from money. It's such a simple idea, but
well, in the book, he's doing the same thing.
Yeah.
I'll give you 25 cents for every hour today.
Mm-hmm.
And then he said they got up to $5.
Yeah.
And he said at that time he was offering us what some of his adult people were making per day.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, and Robert says, as the author of the book, he says it was really, really, it was getting to the point to where I almost couldn't say no.
Yeah, he talks about, like, being able to flash the cash in front of his friends and so on.
But he was doing the same deal, the
Mhm.
same way.
Yeah. Yeah, sometimes some of the most simple things about learning to build wealth can be some of the most difficult to really let them sink in because sometimes the simplicity of something makes people believe that, "Oh, that can't be the case, it's too easy." Well, sometimes things are easy, it's just that you've been so, and I hate to keep saying brainwashed over and over again, but I don't know any better way to say it. When society brainwashes you into doing certain things, then sometimes simple solutions just sound crazy to you.
It is it is it is as he described it in his book, like the horse going for the carrot that you're holding it out in front of, and you're making him move, trying to get the carrot, and actually the guy riding the horse is getting what he wants, you know?
Mhm.
But it's also, like you described before, it's also the scenario of the trap, right? You got whatever the person wants there in the trap, you put your hand in and now you're caught, right?
Yeah.
Or your foot in and now you're caught. Um, that's what people are doing every day in business.
Mhm.
They're dangling the shiny thing in front of people and to get whoever they can get to jump in the trap.
Yeah.
That's what they're doing.
Yep. It's
And
eh
sometimes it's not a bad thing, sometimes it's just business. But sometimes people are doing that like Bernie Madoff, and they're getting people, he got people to trust him with millions and millions and millions of dollars, uh, and he was the trap,
yeah.
you know?
Yeah. That's it's a good thing that we have the internet now. And but even having access to the internet and so on now, a lot of people still don't know how to look up to see if a company's really making money. And if they're private, there's really no easy way to do that. But if they're a public company, somewhere on their website, they should at least have a balance sheet and an income statement. And uh, before we close out today, I want to tell you, like, if you really want to be able to build wealth and make money, you need to learn what some of these documents are: balance sheet, income statement, statement of cash flows. You need to be able to go to a company's website, identify where those are, and be able to read them and say, "Oh, this company's full of crap. They're losing money," because not all of them are making money. Um, Speaking of which, though, what time are we at right now?
Hour 12.
Hour 12. Okay. Um, Anybody got anything else? Think,
I think we covered a good bit on money today.
yeah,
Some
yeah.
good stuff too.
Mm.
Read the book too.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah. I don't remember if I said the title or not, but the book that we've been going over is called Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. Really good book. Um, some of it's you're gonna find offensive, especially if you've got family and education or that are teachers. But if you can get past a boomer or whatever telling you, or
He's
making,
no more offensive than Dave Ramsey. That's for sure.
yeah, yeah. I mean, and if you ask me, nothing against Ramsey. Ramsey's got some good stuff to say, but somehow Kiyosaki in this book figures out a much better way to start unwashing your brain. Ramsey really doesn't change your mindset. He just, I mean, maybe he does a little bit at the very basic level, but at some point you need to go a little bit deeper than what somebody like Ramsey talks about. Um, and that's what I'm trying to be for you. So we'll keep talking about this stuff some more. And we'll continue sometimes talking about current events in scripture too. Um, but anyway, I think that pretty much does us for today. So thanks for watching us. Subscribe, like, comment, and we'll see y'all next week.